idea. Hey, Daryl. Hey, Daryl,
Hmm.
did you get those almond M&Ms I asked for?
No, I didn't. Why?
Be- okay, I have to have snackies. I can't be the navigator on the road to 100 without snackies. And almond M&Ms, nobody really thinks about it. And some people have allergies to almonds, and yes, they're more expensive, but they're so much more satisfying than peanut M&Ms. They really
They're
are.
they're very satisfying. I prefer myself peanut M&Ms when you're on the road to 100. Episode 96 of the Cinnamon Man. I'm so glad
And
to
we
be
got
here.
the tire fixed.
And we got
It
the
was
tire
thumping
fixed.
these last few episodes, and we finally got the tire fixed. So yay for on the patch job. Sorry, you were about to say something. Apologies.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. We have a guest with us today
Yes,
in
we
the
do.
most appropriate of months. Douglas, take it away, sir.
We are joined today. When we were thinking about these 10 episodes on the road to 100, we had decided, for those of you who sort of haven't figured it out yet, that we wanted to, instead of taking a specific look at a specific aspect like melee weapons in a fight sequence or long takes, whatever else, we wanted to pull back a bit and talk about general genre. And as we got close to November, we were like, well, of course we have to talk about noir. And that's just sort of a given. Last year, Daryl, you did that wonderful, you grabbed some fellow critics and everybody picked a different movie and sort of dug through it. But for this, we are delighted to be joined by a very special guest, Mariah Gates. Mariah, for those of you who don't know, she's Rotten Tomatoes accredited. She's a member of the Chicago Film Critics Association, contributor for RogerEbert.com and IndieWire. She's the operator of her own Substack that contains reviews and recommendations. She has worked with Turner Media. She was the editorial manager for Netflix for a time. She's the writer editor for cinemafanatic.com. She's been a freelance columnist for Movie Phone. Can you tell I did my research? And because the plug of all plugs, she is the author of the upcoming book, Cinema Her Way, Visionary Female Directors in Their Own Words, a collection of profiles and definitive cinematic images that represent women directors' most poignant works chosen by the filmmakers themselves, shining a light on the impact they have made on the landscape of contemporary film from Art House Award winners to Hollywood blockbusters.
Mm.
Mariah, thank you for joining us today.
Where
We are
did
delighted to
that
have you.
where did that description come from? That's
From
amazing.
you.
I
I always do my research on our guests. Want to make sure that the everything sounds as you
yeah.
guys are awesome, and we want people to know about your work. That was taken, and I hope this doesn't come across as creepy. So you shared a photo on your Instagram,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was
Say
the official, I
profile?
think, market blurb. You were
Oh,
like, I
that's
have an
wild.
announcement.
Yeah. It's interviews rather than profiles. So I forgot what that blurb said. I feel like the publisher wrote what they wrote.
I am pretty sure I
Actually,
copied it
interviews.
word for word, so I
They're
apologize if I messed it up.
oh no, that's fine. I forgot that it said profiles. It's actually in-depth interviews. So with like very little, it's the filmmakers doing the talking, and then I basically very small profiles from me, because I figure if you're reading the book, hopefully you're reading what the filmmakers are saying and not what I'm saying about the filmmakers. So
I like that idea. I like that idea. This,
yeah.
um,
Now I'm
I
like, am I gonna turn this into the publisher and they think I was doing profiles? Like, oops.
this is the guest that I've been most excited about, and I hope every other guest we've ever had listens to this episode so they can hear that they are no longer my most excited guest.
But this is actually true, Mariah, because Daryl is a big noir fan,
Oh
and
yeah.
so he has been talking about Noirvember. And for those of you who don't know, she is responsible for that. In fact, I recently saw, I forget if it was on Twitter or not, but it was a video where
With
someone was
Eddie.
talking about you having
Yeah.
created it and offering their own recommendations. That I can't imagine what it must feel like, but you have established a legacy in the cinema
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, I feel like of all the things I've done, which is hilarious that this is the one thing I just did for fun.
Is that always the way?
I know that I feel like if heaven forbid I were to like get hit by a car and die, like Noirvember would keep happening. Like most of the people who do it, I would guesstimate like 95% of the people who like program or just do it as a home viewer, whatever, have no idea who I am. Like, and I kind of love that. I love that it's out there in the world. It's like National High Five Day. It's like that. There are creators of National High Five Day, but you don't know who it is. It doesn't matter. It's still high fiving people, you know. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it to really take off the way it did, but I'm glad it did. And I'm glad, I think between Noirvember adding a real social side to learning about noir and appreciating noir, which we're an increasingly social media bent society, coupled with TCM, you know, having the weekly Noir Alley program with Eddie, which I also worked on. I launched the social media for that and also helped name it. Um, but I was in that like brainstorm. And then we were talking about Criterion before we started recording. Criterion has, with their channel, made the streaming so much easier, and even Tubi this year. The amount of films on Tubi that I remember tracking down like really crappy copies of on like places I don't want to talk about because it was like the internet 14 years ago. Absolutely
Having
amazing.
used LimeWire and Napster, I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
You know how the internet used to be, but now it's like you have the social component and you have an accessibility to the films that didn't happen when this started. And now I feel like there's a real, this is a real cinematic movement that has been resurrected and rescued, and I don't think will be forgotten anymore. These films won't be forgotten, and that makes me really happy.
You'd said that this started off as, and you were amused by the fact that it started off as something that you were doing for fun. So how did you get into cinema that led you to the, you know, it would be fun, I'm going to do this?
Yeah. I grew up just always watching lots of films because on one hand, my dad, both my parents grew up in Los Angeles, and my dad was one of those like kids that was always homesick, and so he was always watching like Channel 9, and in the 50s, 60s, Channel 9 always showed like classic films, and so he was always watching classic films. And then my mom, when she was in her master's program in the 80s, got really into like film theory for her so she learned about like you know, mise-en-scène and the right aspect ratio, and started delving beyond the films she grew up with into like more classic films. And so as a child of the 90s, both those parents and the VHS, you know, making everything available, we just always had movies, and we always had classic movies wherever available. I grew up with the AMC American Movie Classics, not Turner classic movies. We did not have TCM, but we did have AMC before it was The Walking Dead, when it was like Audrey. Yeah. And so that was just always like, there wasn't a time in my life where we weren't a cinephile family, even though I don't think my parents would call themselves cinephiles. They definitely are. Like I'll bring up some classic movie and my dad will have seen it. He's seen everything. Or he'll bring up one. He's like, I can't believe you haven't seen it yet. I'm like, Dad, you've got 35 years on me. It's fine.
There's so many.
Yeah. But Noirvember in particular came out of this time during the recession where like a lot of millennials,
Excuse me, which one?
the Great Recession of you know, the housing crisis, Great Recession. In 2009, I moved into the back of my parents' house because they turned my bedroom into like a storage unit. So I was living in like the terrible back room with all the cats, and kind of depressed, as you will, if even though cats are great. Didn't have a job. So I was using like Netflix disc and Netflix streaming back when you could do both, and back when they had a lot of classic films. And so I caught up with all the Best Picture winners, and then I caught up with horror movies, you know, like classic the Universal horror films that I think I'd seen when I was a kid, but like not in such a way that I really remembered them. So I was like doing that, and I was like, well, what can I do for November? Because I did like Best Pictures in September and horror in October, and I was like, oh, Netflix at the time, Netflix had a lot of noir on it. I was like, oh, Noirvember sounds like something. But at the time I did the hyphen. I hadn't really mastered hashtags yet. And so I came up with this list that I got on IMDb, and it was like the top 50, which I looked at it now and I'm like, some of these are not actually noir. It was a hinky list, but I didn't know anything. That's why I was starting, you know?
Yeah.
I think I had seen like Sunset Boulevard and like the Maltese Falcon, and that was about it. So the original challenge was those 50 films. So that first year I watched, in that 30 days, all those films. And I had two friends who watched one film each with me. My friend Kristen watched Odd Man Out, and my friend Lillian watched Laura over the internet, like they were in different cities.
Mhm.
No one else did this with me that first year. It was just like a dud. I made all these graphics, like nobody cared. I made a Facebook page. People joined, but did they watch films? No. And then the next year was really when I started to get like really good at like film Twitter and like using hashtags and like Tumblr. Like I started to become pretty popular on Tumblr. And between those two places, I think more and more people started doing it. And then a few years in, I started seeing like libraries joining in because librarians are really cool and they realized that like this
Yes,
was
they
kind
are.
of fun. Yeah, this was a fun way to like they have most libraries have discs like DVDs available and books, and they could be like read the Maltese Falcon and watch the Maltese Falcon, you know. And it was
Yeah.
like libraries were diving in, and now here we are, and it's like the streaming services and libraries and cinematheques and micro cinemas and you name it. And there's still some people who are really like, I hate the poor man too. And I'm like, do you hate it? But do you love that people are watching noir? And if so, then just like swallow it. You know what I
Go with
mean?
it.
Like just be okay with it. And so, I don't know. I really didn't think I was creating like a national viewing habit, even though that was what I was trying to. It's weird because I was trying to push people to like watch noir in November, but I also didn't think it would like blow up. I don't know. I
Uh,
wanted like 100 people to do it, not as who knows how many people do it now.
it isn't okay. So, one of the organizations I'm in, we're watching a lot of documentaries for some awards that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And literally today, I watched I forget the director's name. Do I have it here? Matthew Heinemann's American Symphony. It's a documentary about John Baptiste,
It's gonna
and
be
it's
on
really
Netflix,
in.
right?
What was that?
Is it gonna be on Netflix? I
Yes,
think I saw
yes,
that
yes, yes.
trailer. Yeah.
And what was fascinating about it is at one point he makes a comment that Baptiste that when he got into music, he didn't get into music to set out to be a celebrity. He wasn't doing it for fame. He was following his talent and his passion and everything else. And so there's a little bit of the documentary. It's really focused on something else, longer discussion, what have you. But I found that interesting. And so what you just said, yes, you wanted it to be a thing. You
Yeah.
wanted to have company. It's my wife and I before kids. We every October invited friends over and we'd make snacks and we'd be like, we're going to watch a kid friendly movie and an adult horror
Yeah.
movie. We're going to do a double feature. Nobody would show up.
Hmm.
So you want to do these things and you put in this work, but then it sort of grows beyond you in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, you set out for it, but the intent wasn't for there to be what it is now. And that's got to be fascinating to be like,
Yeah.
this is a
It's
thing I've
been
made.
really fun to see. Like some people have created an actual challenge where they're like, watch a noir with X thing and watch a noir with Y thing. Like that, there's like actual viewing parameter challenges that some people do. One of the first challenges off the beaten path that I saw early on, like on Instagram, it was a lot of the not comic book, but like comic artists.
Mm-hmm.
They do like a comic a day kind of thing to just keep their, as a brain teaser or whatever, to keep their art
Mm-hmm.
sharp. And so a lot of the comic people would do a noir a day drawing. And some of these artists I've been following for like a decade now, and every year they still do it. And somehow every year they come up with 30 completely new like noir-esque drawings, and I'm really impressed. But that was one of the first ones where I was like, wow, this is like not even about film anymore. It's about like the kind of the tropes and the visual styles of it, and it's being translated into a completely different art now. And that I found that very rewarding.
Why noir? Did you put forth the same effort that you were doing when you were doing the scary movies in October and the best
Um,
pictures in September? Or sorry,
no,
what was it
I
about
did.
noir?
Yeah, I didn't make those ones a challenge. I think partly because like Best Picture is just that was just like I only had like 20 left or something. um and horror, there's already horror in October is already kind of a thing people do, and it didn't feel like I needed to like curate, whereas noir I hadn't really seen um other than I knew that like Eddie. I didn't know Eddie yet. Eddie is now a dear friend, but prior at that time I did not know him, but I knew of the Film Noir Foundation, and so I knew there were these like festivals. But you have to be like in San Francisco or Los Angeles or wherever to participate in that. And so I thought, well, this noir is available at the time. It was truly, there was like great films on Netflix at the time. And it's a genre that I, as someone who's pretty adventurous, didn't know a lot about, which made me think a lot of people probably were afraid to watch it. And I love Sunset Boulevard so much that I figured like these films all must be this good. And then, you know, those cream of the crop ones really are that good. They're all like solid, like bangers. So I thought, well, maybe instead of just me watching, this could, I guess, potentially have I guess there was always that kernel of maybe this could have an effect, you know, on bringing more people to the genre. Even though I didn't even particularly love the genre yet, it was more, I love this, I want to share it with people, and more, if I don't even know about this, clearly lots of people probably don't, and it just felt like maybe a good thing to do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You cover more than just noir. Do you approach other cinema with that same sort of curiosity?
I hope so. Yeah. I definitely spend the year, obviously now that I'm doing full-time film criticism, I watch a lot of new releases, like a lot, go to a lot of festivals, but I try really hard to fill lots of any gap that I have. So for example, I have a really large list of silent films that I have been working through for several years. I have in the last 5 years been really trying to watch more films from Africa, both older films and newer films, because that's just a region of the world that is often completely ignored by everybody. And frankly, there's some really cool, like not just Afrofuturism, but like just in general, contemporary African cinema is like doing things that visually no one's doing in any genre. So, but it's really hard to find. So whenever I find like an African film playing in a film festival, I'm like, I'm going to see that one. And then obviously I did A Year with Women, which was that year I watched only films directed by women. And that was less a challenge for other people and more, I saw that as kind of both a filling of a gap for me, but also like a protest. I saw that kind of as a protest, because multiple men told me, oh, you can't find a whole year's worth of films directed by women. The thing is, there's actually like thousands and thousands of films directed by women, and you could probably spend your entire life watching a film a day directed by women and not run out of films.
Yeah.
Even if you stopped watching new films, like just going backwards, you would be fine. So it was kind of a protest against like bro-y film culture, and the lack of coverage of films directed by women that I was seeing in 2015. That has changed a lot now. I think there's a lot more focus, not just like I still have my specific like my column and everything, and I still use the hashtag and directed by women, but incorporating covering films by women in ordinary film coverage has improved. And I can't say that I necessarily like 100% am responsible for that, but I definitely think I helped push towards that, because that project got a lot of coverage and there was a lot of misinformation about how few directors there were, and just showing the breadth of directors, like even making contemporary films, I think helped a lot of outlets realize, oh shit, we are not doing a good job of even like contemporary, you know, coverage. And so I guess that's a similar, I don't know. I just watch a lot of movies.
Nothing wrong with it.
I have a really like broad, like taste. Like I like to try lots of things, and I like to, you know, I love noir, I love silent films, but I love horror films. I love, you know, documentaries. I like just trying everything I can possibly find, experimental films. Very few films that I don't like. When I don't like a film, it's like painful. I had to write a review of a documentary that I thought was atrocious today. And I had been sitting on the notes for like 4 days because I don't like writing about things that I don't like, because I'm a very passionate person. And it's painful when something's not good or I don't like something. I hate it because I just want to share things that I love.
And I agree with that completely. That's trying to find a way to write depending on your style, and every critic has a different approach. I know for me personally, when I'm trying to dig into something and it's something that didn't resonate or didn't connect with, even trying to express here's why it didn't work for me. It's so hard to sometimes articulate that or to make it as clear and concise as possible.
Yeah.
But it's one thing, because part of the reason why I asked if I've noticed that you go to different festivals, and we've got you on here to talk about noir, and we're going to shift into that very shortly. But noir isn't just like one genre. I mean, it is its own genre, but just like action movies cross over with adventure, fantasy, supernatural, superhero, western, right?
Yeah.
Noir can be funny, it can be silly, it can be scary, it can be thrilling, it can be all of these things. So just because you have a specialty or you are known for one genre doesn't mean that you are that genre.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having a specialty. I know a lot of folks, they just focus on like superhero stuff. Okay, fine, no problem. I can't do that. I need more. Personally, I need more. And you can probably see it behind me. When we're done and after I put the kids to bed, I'm watching this for the first time. I know, after our sports episode, Daryl, after the sports episode.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Rudy since I was a kid, but I loved that when I was like, it was like on TNT all the time in the 90s.
My mom's a fan of it. She's big. I'm the black sheep that doesn't do sports stuff. So I've been, again, it's about expanding one's horizons, and it's getting a 4K release. And so I was like, I've never seen this. Let's find out about it. I spend most of my year watching restorations of various Hong Kong cinema stuff. I was like, let's do football. Let's find out what Rudy's all about. The newsroom loved Rudy. Let's do Rudy. So anyway. Well, Daryl, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, what specifically about noir, the genre itself, really sucked you in? Is it the tropes?
Yeah.
Is it like what is it that you're like, wait a minute, there's some good shit here?
I think I've borrowed this phrase from Eddie Moeller a lot, the Film Noir Foundation president. He calls noir a suffering with style. And so I'm like a sad girl person. Like if you see like the music I listen to or like the books I love, it's all like sad girl, like Sylvia Plath stuff and like sad, sad autumn girl of all year long kind of stuff. And I think what I love about noir is because it is, even though there can be noir comedies and what have you, most of noir tends to hover in that like melodrama, the world is a terrible place. But I don't want to completely despair because I'm trying to hope a little bit, but then things are terrible anyways. And I just love like being like, that's me. Like I feel as though my worldview is very similar to like getting overly attached to somebody that I can't trust is like something I relate to, or someone who starts out really kind of chipper and then gets completely disillusioned the deeper they get into something. I'm like, that is so true, bestie, and so I think what I love about noir is that tenor that's through most of the films, not all the films, but quite a lot of the films. And then the style side, they are like the really, really top tier noir are so stylish. And I don't just mean the expensive ones. I mean films, some of the cheapies are like the way that they use fashion or the way that they use lighting is so sleek and interesting and unlike anything else. And so you get that beautiful combo of the sadness of the world and the weight of the world with this like undeniable style. And then on top of that, the dialogue and the like flirtation that's in a lot of these films. I also really love romance, and a lot of noir, not all of it, but a lot of noir is like bad romances, romances that don't end well, which is also a genre I love. Like, like I love sad period pieces where the couple, someone dies by the end. Like that's my shit. So a lot of noir kind of falls into that. Yeah, it's I don't know. I find
like
it. I find a lot of it. I find suffering really comforting, but not like the poverty porn kind of misery porn stuff. I don't really like those films, but films that are sort of like truth. There's like the true suffering, like they're truthful about how the world is a suffering place. As someone who that is where my brain tends to go, I just feel very comforted by these artists who are like, yeah, it is a terrible place and we're going to keep fighting for it.
Yes, that's a wonderful
Yeah.
answer. And I think that you were talking about romance in that aspect. I think there is a bit of romanticism in the it's shitty, but I will always fight for. There's a
Yeah, I
romanticism
mean,
in that I
I
love.
also love Raymond Chandler's writing because his books are truly like they're not cynical like a lot of people think. What's great about them and why they adapt so well to this genre is Philip Marlowe is a true romantic. He is so open-hearted and so believing in a better place, but he's seen so much that he knows that that belief is misplaced.
Hmm.
And so he always gets into these shenanigans because he's like, okay, I can make it better, even though he knows better. And he never makes it better. And frankly, by the time he gets out, things are worse. And I love that. I love that he keeps trying. Yeah.
All right on. Right on. Doug, are you going to give us a rundown, sir, as you are wont to do?
Before we get to that, we try to ask our guests, and it doesn't have to be specific to what we're talking about today, but if you could recommend any 5 films, what would they be?
The five noir or
No,
anything.
5 of
Oh,
anything. It could
wow.
be
Yeah.
could be noir, it could be romance, crime, comedy,
All right.
super whatever.
Do this.
Any 5 films you would recommend people see.
My favorite movie of all time is the 1994 version of Little Women. I saw the movie when I was 8, and movies have only gone downhill since then. That's been my favorite movie for 30 years. Like
Movies and music, you hit a certain age and it's like it never gets better.
It's just that's the movie for me. I've watched it probably several hundred times. It's just that movie is literally how I became the person I am today. So I love that film. I love Bright Star, Jane Campion's Bright Star. That is the saddest period film. You will cry. I'm giving like Sad Girl Autumn, I think, answers here.
Nothing wrong with it.
I love James Ivory's Morris, which actually has less of a sad ending than I expected. It's very heartwarming film. It puts those characters through the ringers, but in the end, it's a beautiful film. That's 3. What else do I love? You know what? I want to recommend a documentary that I saw last year. It's kind of long. It's called As I Was Moving Forward. I occasionally saw brief glimpses of beauty, I think. Something like that. It's Jonas Mekas, and it's like 6 hours long. And it's kind of home movies, but it's edited really poetically. And it's like, again, sort of the sad romantic view of the world from the point of view of his kids growing up and like his cats. And it's a beautiful film. That's 4, right? Yeah. Okay. One more. One last good sad girl movie. Oh, you know what? We're heading into Christmas, kind of. But this is I made the argument on a podcast a couple of days ago that this is also noir. I love It's a Wonderful Life because it's mostly bleak. Most of that movie is about a guy who never leaves his town. He never gets to do what he thinks he wants to do. He's a big open-hearted person, but he's angry about it. He feels unfulfilled until he finally realizes that actually he was doing a really good job, like helping the world. Because most people help others without realizing it, and that fulfillment is like missing until you like take a step back. And I love that movie asks you to take a step back and look at your own contributions to the world, even if you don't think you're doing a good for the world. You probably are. And it's like bleak and bleak and bleak. He like wants to, jump into the icy depths of the river, and in the end he realizes he had a good life and he's a good person and he was a pillar of the community. And it's about community and home, and also being sad because you think you haven't done anything with your life. It's very complex film. I think people think it's just every time a bell rings, angel has its wings, but it's a far more complex, human, and I think truthful film than it is given credit for being. I watch it on Christmas Eve every year. So
that's the Christmas Eve. Doug, do you have a go-to Christmas Eve?
What was that?
Do you have a go-to Christmas Eve movie?
Not until I got married. I was raised Reformed Jewish in the Reformed Jewish community, and my wife is very much not. But let's see. Particularly since the kids, not really, because it's more about, okay, they're asleep, so now we have to set everything else up for them. My kids are very lucky. They get Hanukkah and Christmas.
That's the best.
Double dip it.
A little
Yeah,
bit of
it's really
everything.
rude because I have a birthday in December, and I grew up getting like one gift for Hanukkah and my birthday. And my kids, my youngest one is about to turn 3 at the end of this month, so he gets his birthday, Hanukkah, and Christmas. It's unfair. It's unfair what these kids have to go through. I had to walk
Yeah.
up. They'll both.
My
flip
friend
flop.
from college, her birthday was also usually a week. It was a week before Christmas, and it often hit Hanukkah. And her mom was Jewish, and her dad was excommunicated Christian, Buddhist, whatever sort of thing. And so she would get these combined Christmas, birthday, Hanukkah things. And finally, her mom had to tell like relatives, like, please don't do this. She is miserable. Like, at least do 2 things, please.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. If anybody tries to do that with my kids, I'd be like, you know what? It was done to me. So here's the deal. Come your birthday, you get one gift this year. One gift. You get to decide which holiday. You get to do that to him. You do that to me. No, done.
I think that's fair.
But sort of on topic before we shift gears completely, only because I've seen it recently. I know he hasn't seen it. Have you, by any chance, seen It's a Wonderful Knife yet?
I saw parts of it because Robert, my partner, was reviewing it, and I was working on a transcription for my book because I'm hitting on a deadline. So I was not able to watch it with him, but he really enjoyed it. He was hooting and hollering in the room. He loved it. So
Yay!
I think I'm going to try to find time for it in December because it sounds great.
Yeah, it does.
Everything you just talked about, I think you're going to enjoy it. I will say nothing else. Unfortunately, I had an opportunity where I got whatever review I was written early. Yeah, it was on the 30th. So I was like, hey, if I get this written, I can watch this movie, and then tonight we can hang out and do something. And she was like, sweet. So got that done early. But I will look for your response. I will look for Robert's review. If he's posted it, I haven't seen it yet.
I think it's going up on Friday. So yeah.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Mine went up on Monday. And Michael Kennedy didn't retweet it. He retweeted a bunch of other ones. Anyway, yeah, I know. We're just pity party over here. Anyway, I will look forward to his review and your thoughts on it later. But for now, let's switch gears, as I know everybody's on a time thing. We are talking about film noir. I usually give a rundown of different examples of film noir. And what I found interesting while doing this is that noir is one of those genres that everybody sort of knows, but sometimes it helps to get a definition. I'd be curious how you feel about this. But it's a genre of crime film or fiction characterized by cynicism, fatalism, and moral ambiguity.
That's me. That's me 100% right there.
Well, yeah, I wasn't trying to describe you. I was trying to describe noir.
I just realized why I love noir so much.
I think that works. I think it's not always crime necessarily. I think sometimes it's the moral ambiguity, I think, is the most important aspect, because it's moral ambiguity on a lot of different facets of human life. I think that's the most important aspect, but I think that's a really good definition. I'm also a fan that it is, while there was an original era, mostly around the war and post-war and into the 50s, I believe that it is more of a tone, like noir. You know a noir when you see it. Not necessarily it has to have these 5 things and be from these years. Like, I don't agree with that, even though the original movement was at a certain time. I think it's a tone, and that's why I think, like, I'm going to call It's a Wonderful Life at least noir stained, which is another phrase that Eddie likes to use. But also, like, a noir can come out this year. Like, that's, you know.
Noir did come out this year. It's called Marlowe.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, some of the examples I pulled, and then one that I was like, are you kidding me? And then with that definition, it actually, I feel like it fits. And it's a film from when they got no better for me. But some examples would be like Angel Face and A Simple Plan, The Maltese Falcon, Devil in a Blue Dress, The Naked City, and The Usual Suspects. But one that popped up that I went, wait, really? Looked at that definition. You just confirmed it. The Mask. The Mask apparently qualifies.
I think The Mask is definitely aware of the noir isms that it's playing with. I would agree with that.
I watched that recently and I went, how as a child was any of this appropriate in a PG-13 movie? But then, of course, I discovered that The Mask as a comic book is not PG-13
Way worse.
appropriate.
You know what else is a noir that it shouldn't be, but definitely you can make the case for it, is Attack of the Clones. Watch it again.
I
Watch
will.
it again.
I will refuse to do that.
The storyline that Obi-Wan Kenobi has is absolutely a noir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's investigating something, pulls a thread.
They have
wider
visual.
shit.
They do visual stuff. They do tonal stuff that is like absolutely noir.
Right on.
Sorry, this is what I love about these kinds of conversations, is because folks tend to just do this with their worldview, but by looking and exploring other genres, you kind of go, oh, there's some pieces over here. And say what you will about the prequel series, but looking at it as an adult, you kind of go, yeah, it's a business stuff and it's trade federation, this and that. And then we look at our world right now and go, oh, it all starts with trade and federations and people blowing shit up. Oh, okay, that's how we end up in wars. So, it tracks. But anyway, so on to our movies. As our guest, would you like to go first or would you like one of us to?
I'll go first, sure.
Word.
So
what is your first movie?
My favorite noir is one that I saw that very first Noirvember. I rewatch it every year. I love it. It's Autumn Prebenger's Laura. I love it as a film. I love the book as well. The book is very different. They have different forms, but the core story is the same. And I think it is very exemplary of all these aspects of the twists and the turns and the really depraved behavior of characters that you would think are upstanding citizens, but truly they are really messed up. And then just the chemistry, the chemistry between Gene Tierney and Dana Andrews is like, wow. Her chemistry with everybody in this movie, actually, I could see why everyone just like gets obsessed with her. It's amazing. And then the cinematography is like top tier, just like beautiful use of light and shadow. And later I became really obsessed, or around the same time, I guess, I became really obsessed with Twin Peaks, which is also kind of noir-esque, at least the original series. And there are so many parallels like between Laura the movie and the first season of Twin Peaks. It's wild. They even like just legit lift some of the names, like Waldo Lydecker. There's Waldo's a bird in Twin Peaks. Lydecker is the name of one of the psychiatrists. Like obviously Laura. It's great. So if you're a Twin Peaks fan, Laura's a really good entry into noir because you'll be like, I see what they stole.
See what you were doing, Lynch.
Yeah.
And cinema really is all about theft. I was watching the new Mission Impossible. No. I was watching the new Mission Impossible the other day, and long story short, after my review was written, whatever, was waiting on something, so I put on some commentary tracks and listening to Christopher McQuarrie talk about how he was watching Ford v Ferrari and saw how Mangold shot the pedal work. And so he wanted to do that in his film. And the editor that's sitting on the commentary track was, oh, yeah, Mangold stole that from this dude over here. And so McQuarrie starts laughing. It's like, it's just theft. We're just stealing from everybody.
Yep.
That's all it is.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Daryl?
Right on.
I'm absolutely going last because between the two of you, mine are all, when I say they're all jokes, I am the least qualified to talk about noir. So I'm just riding y'all's coattails.
There's one of yours. I'm like, I bet he has this on his list. I can't wait to see if I'm right or not. I'm gonna go ahead.
It's not Evil Dead.
It's not. Somehow you would find a way to put Evil Dead on this list. I'm gonna do Brick as my first one. Rian Johnson, 2005, early Rian Johnson, before he made one of the best Star Wars movies of all time. I absolutely love and adore this movie. A contemporary-ish noir story with all of the flavor of that late 40s and early 50s noir, fast talk, the speech, very anachronistic, I guess would be the best word to put for it. What if you took a noir with all that the existentialness that we talked about and set it in high school? It makes for a really weird
Yeah.
juxtaposition in the whole thing. I think it's one of my favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt performances as well, and it's just great from beginning to end, and just wonderful.
That movie rules. That movie, it's one of those ones I remember I rented it from disc Netflix, rest in peace. And I think I watched it like 3 times before I sent it back. I was like, this movie fucking rules. Yes. Oh, can I swear? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You absolutely can swear.
Okay. It rules. That movie's so good. And it holds up too. It holds up.
Yeah, I wrote for last year's Noirvember, I wrote a review for Brick, and it had been a couple years since I've seen it, and I was like, oh, this is so much better than I remember it being. Such a fun movie to watch.
So this is an embarrassment, but I can't remember if I watched Brick this year or last year. I was watching some other Rian Johnson stuff, so it was probably last year with Glass Onion.
Don't need to be embarrassed as long as you saw it, baby.
No. Here's the embarrassing part. So the year is, we'll call it 2022. Maybe it was 2023. I have owned Brick on DVD since the early aughts.
Oh, I've done that.
It's moved twice with me. My now wife and I were living across the street from just this complex of stuff, and there's a Walmart that was right down the road in Bowie, Maryland. I can tell you where I was when I bought it. We never got around to watching it.
I have a couple of Criterions that I bought probably in 2014 that are in the package still.
You shut up, Daryl. You shut up. There are people like us.
It happens. I've moved like 3 different cities and they're still in the shrink wrap.
As long as you don't accidentally double dip in your buying. That's
I did that once too. I bought Jane Campion's Sweetie twice on accident, and then I gave it as a gift to somebody.
What do you know? Hey, Douglas, by the way, I forgot to give you that War and Peace double that I bought.
I was going to bring it up last night at the screening, but I was like, you know what? You were dealing with enough old man stuff last night. You didn't need any more than that. Poor guy hurt himself. He hurt himself watching The Lord of the Rings. He hurt his knee. Don't ask.
All right, Douglas, what's your first movie, sir?
My first movie, mine are not favorites. They're not in any other order in this case, but chronological, because it works out for me that way. So my first one is from 2003. It is a film that I've seen once, and it's one of those movies where you watch it once, you want to talk about it. You may not necessarily want to watch it again, but if it resonates with you, it's something you want in your collection. It's just celebrated an anniversary, 20th, in fact. And it's not only been in theaters again with a restoration, it is coming out on 4K in a special limited edition from Neon. It's Park Chan-wook's Old Boy.
Let me close that tab out.
I have a confession. I have only seen the Spike Lee remake.
That's fine.
I have not seen the original. I have not seen the original.
I have held off on watching the Spike Lee remake for no other reason than having seen this one. I feel like Lee, as great of a director as he is, some of this I don't think translates necessarily as well.
I think I liked it more than a lot of people do because I couldn't compare it. So I would put it like, it's not a great Spike Lee movie, but I've seen all of his movies, and it's definitely not at the bottom either. It's kind of solidly in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of afraid to watch the original version, because then it will like sully this one, but maybe I'll like them both. I don't know.
And you really never know. What's fascinating, this year I watched, I suddenly can't remember the director's name, but Final Cut, the French remake of One Cut of the Dead. And what was great about it is that they made it a meta movie where, yes, the movie itself is a remake of One Cut of the Dead, this Japanese film, but it itself, within the narrative, they are actively aware that they are remaking a Japanese movie. And because the director he says the wrong things to the producers and this, that, and the other, producers draw a line in the sand and go, you know what? And if we're going to do this, you have to keep the same names. You can't change any of the dialogue of the story. all of this stuff. So you have these French actors with Japanese names making references to, and it turns into this, at least to me, this metatextual exploration of what a remake and adaptation is when you move it from time and place to another. Where I literally finished this movie, looked at my wife and went, I want them to do this in America, but keep it going where they're forced to keep it with the Japanese names and text, so that we then have to confront America's relationship with, like, it was this whole rabbit hole. Please do this. But yes, not all remakes live up to it, and where you come to a movie colors that. If you get the chance to see it, for no other reason than I hope everybody enjoys every movie they watch, I hope you enjoy it. It is supremely, just as a concept, screwed up, and where the story goes is absolutely heartbreaking, particularly as you get the hero is kind of the villain, and the villain is kind of righting a wrong, and it's all about perspective, that depending on who you were following would depend on who you would side with. I particularly found that interesting, and my wife hasn't seen it, so I'm thinking about getting that 4K just so I can show it to her. But we'll see.
I landed in Korea, and within 24 hours, my buddy was like, sit down. We are watching this movie. And I was like, bro, my body says it's 3 o'clock in the morning right now. I don't know what's going on. And he was like, I don't care. We're going to watch Old Boy. And it was one of my favorite movie watching experiences. It's definitely worth it.
All right, back to you.
Back to me. Okay, I'm doing off chronological also. So I'm gonna go with The Third Man, a movie that is so good that both the AFI and BFI have had it on the best British film and British American film lists, because they cannot decide. It's a co-production. It belongs to both countries. It belongs to no countries. It is so good. Like, Orson Welles was never more charming. Like, even though he's a sociopath in this movie, he was never more charming than he was in this movie. It's got one of the most complex Joseph Cotten performances. Alita Valley is amazing. The way it was filmed on location in Vienna, so you truly see the like bombed out post-war, like, this is why everyone is like depressed right now, is like, this literally the world is crumbling. It's still relevant today in terms of like war profiteering, because there's people are still doing that, and it's just a really bleak movie. And then the ending is so, like, you think maybe it'll end on a good place, and then the very last shot of the film is so bleak and so just like, wow, everything is terrible. And then it has that beautiful zither score by Anton Karas that is like, top 5 most iconic uses of music in movies ever. I think Roger Ebert used to end all of his when he would film his TV show, when it was just his show, he would end it with the Third Man music, because it's like his favorite thing, and I'm like, I feel it deeply. It's a movie I've watched dozens of times and always come back to it, finding new things I didn't notice. It's such a rich film.
Yeah, it's a movie that I have not seen yet. My mom bought it for me like 3 weeks ago.
It's so good.
So it was just sitting right there on the shelf. And
is it the Criterion edition?
No, it's not the Criterion edition.
If you have Criterion Channel, a lot of the special features from the Criterion edition are on Criterion Channel, and I do recommend them. There's really interesting audio commentary and a lot of making of stuff and things, like leftover stuff from that they filmed of the making of when they made it. And it's just a very it's probably one of their best discs they ever put together, just in terms of like sheer contextualization of what this film was and how it was made. But it's still good. I can't wait for you to watch it. You're gonna love it.
Yeah. When I hit the lottery, my first order of business is to throw money at Sony to give me a Criterion Channel app on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because there's times I'm like, oh fuck yeah, I do have the Criterion Channel, don't I? And it's like, oh yeah, because it's you see all the other ones in there, and you're like, I guess I'll go to Peacock and see what's up. And sometimes I forget that I have the Criterion Channel.
Could I make a cheaper option to do with your lottery winnings? Get
Look,
like
give
an
it.
Apple TV or something? Just
No,
install the
I'm doing this for the good of everybody, Douglas. I'm altruistic.
Sure.
Good call though. I wanted to try to check it out before we did this, and I didn't get the chance to, but I kind of figured it would come up somewhere. Is it over on me?
It's on you.
I'm gonna go back to one of the old school joints, back to the 40s, man. Speaking of Criterion, and I can't not talk about Double Indemnity as my second choice. This was a blind buy for me on Criterion. And man, I don't think I've ever been happier with a blind buy on well,
Yeah.
in the mood for love. But yeah, Double Indemnity is
That's one of his favorites. I want to make sure that that context was clear. That's one of his favorite movies.
Oh, in the mood
You've
for
never
love.
been. No. I just the way you said it. I've never been happier. Well, except maybe for this one. I want to be clear. He freaking loves that movie.
Yes, I do. When I think of noir, there's two movies I think of. Well, three: like Casablanca, Maltese Falcon, which I've both talked about a million times on this show, which is why I'm not talking about them here, and Double Indemnity, because me, that is noir. It's everything I want out of a movie. It's the femme fatale, the guy who gets caught up in over his head. Edward T. Robinson is throwing 100 miles an hour all throughout this movie, and it's just so fun to watch this whole thing go down. Yeah,
it's a great book too. It's a really faithful adaptation of, it's a very quick read to the book. A little racier, if you can believe it. It's like, I remember reading that one and I was like, oh no, I shouldn't read this at work. I used to work in the movie theater and I was like, I hope no one like reads James M. Cain's books are like a little dirty. It's wild that they became these very slick, like classic Hollywood films, because it was like those were not high class literature.
Well, that's because classic Hollywood was never horny.
Yeah.
That's what we're taught in school. Nobody was ever horny.
No, watch this movie and you're like, oh no, they're saying what? Like really clever ways of getting around the censors in that movie.
That's something I wanted to bring up earlier that I forgot about. I think there is a very strong correlation. You know, we talked about some of the things that noir is and isn't, and one of those things is like your tropes, your downtrodden detective, and your femme fatale, and taking something that seems like a small, easy case that ends up building to something way larger, like Chinatown. A lot of those elements are present and adapted from like pulp novels, like the little 200 pages that you would read on one rainy Saturday. Did you ever get into reading any of those as well?
Oh, I have so many. So I studied literature in college and I kind of burnt out on like reading like complex British literature, like French, political literature. I was like, so I didn't read for several years. And then when I was working in a movie theater, I lived it was right next to a bookstore, and they had this beautiful collection of Raymond Chandler, James M. Cain, and Hammett. It was like one section. They had just all of these, and they would put them on sale sometimes. And so I blind bought, I think Double Indemnity was the first one I blind bought. It was like that, The Big Sleep. And I was like, what? And so then I would save up money, and every couple of weeks I would buy a new one. I ended up buying, from that one bookstore, probably a dozen of the like Chandler, Hammett, Cain sort of era books. And it really got me back into reading. Now I read everything again, like complex stuff and the pulpy stuff. But those books really, like, they really are. They're quick reads. They're just as fun as the movies. Oftentimes racier because there was less censorship on the books. Mostly because they weren't like legit books at the time. They were like buy them at a gas station books. And they're great. Like I cannot recommend both Cain and I don't like Hammett quite as much. His is a little more traditional, but the Cain and the Chandler ones are like some of the best books I've ever read, and they're really depraved. So if you like depraved literature like that, I got books for you.
Right up my alley.
Yeah.
All right, Douglas, is on you, I do believe, sir.
Mine's going to jump to 2005, and I went and checked this just to make sure. This was before things shifted in cinemas depending on who you talk to.
Hmm.
This is a 2005 film by Shane Black called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
God damn it.
Oh yeah,
Did I steal another one from you?
Yes.
that's a fun one.
Yeah.
This is a movie, for those of you that don't know, Robert Downey Jr. This was before Iron Man, 3 years before Iron Man, when those of us who grew up watching Robert Downey Jr. also were aware of some of the troubles that he ran into with drugs and alcohol. And so seeing him show up in a movie was kind of exciting if you were a fan of his, because it's a chance to see somebody that you admire at work. And this is a film that includes Val Kilmer in one of the
He's so
best
good.
roles of his career, and he's had so many good ones.
Okay,
But with Michelle Monaghan and Corbin Burnson, Shannon Sossaman shows up for a cup of coffee in this one. But this is the kind of movie that my wife, I love her so much. My wife and I have just celebrated 12 years together. Married couple, we will be celebrating 19 years dating in January. We've known each other longer than that. She cannot tell a story in a straight line to save her life. And anytime she gets confused, I look at her and go, there was a blue horse. Wait. And when I'm having an argument with one of my kids, one of them is almost 8.5. And if he's in the bathroom or if I'm standing in his doorway, my hands are on the door frame like this, because if a door gets shut, I swear.
You don't want that finger getting chopped off?
Nope. So there's so many little things about this movie that have just sort of integrated them into the lexicon, whether verbal or physical, of our household. And it's also such a compelling story as well. It's a great mystery. It's hilarious. Someone was coming at critic Valerie, suddenly I can't think of her last name. Starts with a C.
Complex?
Yes. Because of her, from what I understand, I haven't read it because I haven't finalized my own review, but a positive review of The Marbles, and someone tried to come at her for it, and someone in the thread shared Gay Perry's thing of, do you know the definition of an idiot? Let me guess, a picture of me. No, it's the literal definition, which you are. Like that, someone shared that. I went, yes, this fucking movie. And for those of you that don't know, it's about a petty thief. He goes to steal something and he's about to get caught and he runs off and he ends up literally falling into an audition for a movie and he gets hired. And he has no fucking idea what he's doing, is bullshitting his way through the whole movie that we're watching. And he ends up falling into a murder mystery as well. So it's like thing upon thing upon thing. And it's Robert Downey before Iron Man. I mean, he's still good now, and I enjoyed him then too. But this is before all of that. And it's just such a phenomenal performance. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out.
You mean future Oscar winner Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes, sure. I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet.
Oh, that's right. You haven't seen Oppenheimer yet. I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang to my core. One of my favorite, I was talking about tropes a little bit ago, of noir is pulling at that one thread and revealing a lot more shadiness that goes along with it. I think like probably Chinatown is one of the best examples of that in film. But Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is also that as well. And it's a great movie. Just so you know, heads up, the Third Man Criterion Blu-ray on Amazon is currently $280. And there's one left in stock, so I'm going to add to cart.
With the 50% off sale, it's $200.
Wow, okay.
No, it's not through Best Buy.
Thankfully,
or Barnes
you
and Noble.
can get the channel for like $20 for a month and watch all the special features on there. Or actually, you could get the channel for a whole year for $99, which is half that price, and have access to thousands of films.
And also, my favorite thing, I'm sorry to get off topic, the Criterion channel is when they would go to different theaters and highlight them. I love that so much.
Art house something. I can't remember what it's called, but when they go and then they'll go to, you'll meet the art house and then they'll pick like 5 movies. I love it. I used to work in several art house movie theaters, so that always brings me really a lot of joy to see the theaters that are like still thriving, because almost every theater that I worked at in the Bay Area is closed.
I kind of.
It's not you. It's not you. It's the industry.
I feel like I'm like a world killer for movie theaters. I'm not ever going to work at the Music Box because I don't want it to close.
I kind of want to use that that series of highlights of art house theaters as a travel guide, just to
Yeah.
go through them all.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be fun.
Yeah. Scorsese, fund my documentary.
He would
He
most
might.
likely.
Oh, he's definitely a listener of this podcast.
Real quick, because you've got class. Are we good to go for a few more minutes?
Yeah. I'm good.
Okay, cool. Then, madam, if you would please.
So my last one's another one I watched that first year, and I rewatch it every year. It is Alexander McKendrick's Sweet Smell of Success, which stars Burt Lancaster as sort of a Walter Winchell-esque newspaper columnist who basically can make or break your career with a sentence. And Tony Curtis is a rat bastard of a press agent trying his damnedest to kiss up to Burt Lancaster while also kind of keeping his clients, but it's like I don't know how many clients he actually has. Susan Harrison is amazing in it as Burt Lancaster's like baby sister that he's trying to control, and she is interesting because she basically left Hollywood after this because the movie is about how terrible and disgusting the background scenes of like media is. And I feel like her as an actress saw that while making a movie, because in making a movie, you also see how horrible and disgusting a background of a certain media, whatever is. And so it's almost like the movie is a reflection, like her character's arc is almost a reflection of her personal arc, which I find fascinating.
Life meaning art.
Yeah, it's got one of the great Bernstein scores. It has jazz. It has beautiful New York cinematography, like some of the best. It has like the sharpest dialogue. It's Clifford Odets, so it's like a symphony, the dialogue. And there are queer readings of this film. You can find people have written about that, which I always find fascinating because I don't think that was purposeful, but I can see it, which is, I think, some of the great things about 40s, 50s censored films is they like there's so much pulsing underneath those films that all kinds of reads can bubble up, purposeful or not. And there's a really great supporting performance from Barbara Nichols, one of the like 50s blonde bombshells that never quite became a star, but she's always great when she shows up in a movie. Great supporting person. And it truly is the most cynical, I think, of it's a late era in the early cycle. It's one of the last of that early cycle, and it's one of the bleakest. Truly, everything is terrible because it's no longer just everything's terrible because of the war. It's like everything is terrible because capitalism, like the fame machine and racism and like everything that was horrible about that we tried to hide was horrible because we're like, no, we're rebuilding a better society after the war. It's like, actually, no, everything got worse after the war. Yep. And this is one of those movies that shows that. And I love it. It's so bleak. And James Wong Howe is the cinematographer, and it's some of his best black and white, like just crisp, beautiful night cinematography, mostly night cinematography. And I love it.
I love it. I love a good stark contrast between dark and lights in my noirs.
That's why we do this show. that was never mind.
I see what you're doing there. Oh boy, I got one left.
Is it one I'm planning to mention? You're
not going to mention that one or that one, so I'll go ahead and take the other one. I could hesitate to call this noir. I kind of feel like it is. I'm going to go with The Way of the Gun.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that.
It's a noir from the criminal's perspective.
Who's in that? I feel like I know this title, but I don't
Ryan
know.
Phillippe,
Yes, okay.
Benicio del Toro, Sarah Silverman at the beginning.
Yeah,
I remember the poster. Yes, I remember the poster. Movie. Like, so it was like this poster was up in the movie rental store in my hometown, but I don't think I actually ever rented it.
I need to rewatch that one. It's been decades.
I worked at a Blockbuster when this hit
going
DVD.
Off my watch list.
Yeah, throw that on the old box there on the watch list. It's two right bastards who are just trying to do right bastard stuff to survive in a world that doesn't care about right bastards. This might be one of my second Benicio del Toro after his henchman role in License to Kill. I love everything about this movie. Two guys kidnapping a surrogate of a really rich woman to try to ransom the baby, and everything that goes wrong after that. set right on the border, the U.S. Mexico border, with the running gag of no one having cell service, and all these little weird bits of humor throughout, twists and turns aplenty. One of the best shootouts in all of movie history, I think. With the worst thing happening to Ryan Felipe in the middle of that shootout. I love everything about this movie. James Caan killing it in his
Love James Bond.
his older years.
Oh, it's on Tubi. Hell yeah. Okay.
Boom,
Okay.
done and done.
That
It starts off a warning, like it lets you know up front that these dudes suck. Nothing like graphic or horrible like that, but it just lets you know right up front that these dudes suck. And it's just fascinating of, will these assholes succeed in their asshole mission, and how this whole thing plays out. It's fascinating. And this is the movie that made me a fan of Juliette Lewis. Yeah.
I saw that in college, my senior year. My friends and I would just go around. It's why I'm laughing. I don't remember much about the rest of the movie. I remember bits and pieces of the rest of the movie. But the opening sequence, we would rewind and rewatch repeatedly. And we started quoting some of them to each other when someone was trying to talk shit. We would start quoting some of the lines to each other from Sarah Silverman, and just
This is the movie that introduced me to Sarah Silverman as well.
I think I knew of her from, there was some comedy she was in where she played a cop who had the hots for somebody. And that
She was
person
also in The Bachelor, 1998's The Bachelor.
The Bachelor.
Chris
maybe
O'Donnell or Renee Zellweger.
Yes. Yes.
that might have been it. I can't remember.
San Francisco movie, The Bachelor. You laugh, but it is some of the best on location filming in San Francisco, at least in the last 20 plus years. It's so beautiful.
I will tell you, because it had Chris O'Donnell in it, I probably did see it.
It's a remake of a Buster Keaton comedy too, which is just crazy.
That explains so much of the style.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love me some good Buster Keaton. And there's a lot of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning that pulls from Buster Keaton as well.
Oh, well, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's what I've heard. I haven't seen it, but I've heard really good things about that one.
Because of how long it is, there's not a lot my wife and I can watch together. Like, as I'm saying, it's actually past my kid's bedtime, and when we're done, I gotta run down, and hopefully he's still in a good mood for the little one. But so we don't watch a lot of long movies together. But the other night I sat her down and was like, you have to watch this one sequence in Dead Reckoning.
Yeah.
Because she watched Fast X with me. And I was watching Dead Reckoning and going, this is the movie Fast X wants to be. And there's a specific moment in Dead Reckoning where I went, they used a CGI car to do something similar in Italy. I can't remember if it was Rome or not. So it may have been the same setting.
Venice,
it was Rome. It was Rome. It was Rome.
Is it Rome?
And it might have supposed to be the same freaking set of stairs. And I'm going, they built stairs. They used a real car. They did all this stuff. And there's a beautiful gag where, in order to avoid hitting a baby, the car that they're in, they turn it and they roll. Well, Tom Cruise and Hallie Atwell are handcuffed together. And there's a gag where, as the car's rolling, they swap seats. And so when the car stops, they're both sitting there going, wait, how did we end up here? It has so many great jokes. And so I showed that car sequence to Crystal, all like maybe 10 minutes of it. She was laughing her ass off the whole time. She doesn't know the mythology of the series like I do. So she doesn't care about any of that. But she was just, it's so good. If you get the chance, I hope you enjoy it. Because yes, Daryl's right.
That sounds very Keaton-esque.
Yes.
Oh, there's so many great jokes in that movie that don't even. It's like, at this point in the series, it really is, because the IMF team sort of turned themselves semi into a joke, beginning with, I think, Ghost Protocol, when Cruise slams his hand down going, mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
And then they pick on him for it. Like, from that point forward, it knows what it is, and it found its rhythm. And like, the emotional beats have emotion and whatever else, but particularly with McQuarrie, they found this way to use physical comedy in a way that keeps the energy. It doesn't diminish anyone. And it's a whole other conversation.
hold the conversation. It is barely hanging on to my top 10 for the year. I'm a root for Mission Impossible. We'll see. A lot of shit left in the year. Doug, what is your final movie, sir? I'm cashing all my chips in. I'm hoping this is the one.
I will be shocked if you can claim this. This is a film that when I watched it, this is another one I've watched it once, and its final sequence. I can't say final image. Final sequence continues to haunt me.
The Green Knight.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's my
movie. In 2016, I formally became a member of the North Carolina Film Critics Association, began doing a marathon where I could around my one child, trying to watch movies that were up for awards consideration. In 2017, I was once again doing it alone. I don't think you joined me that year, Daryl.
No, I joined you in 19.
It was 2018. Yeah, that's right. Hustlers. So 2019.
Hustlers and Parasite.
So I got to watch Lynn Ramsey's You Were Never Really Here all by myself.
Ah, yes.
And that movie fucked me up. It is Joaquin Phoenix, who plays a former veteran who is still dealing with his PTSD, but he uses his skills to track down kidnapped girls. And this one particular job that we're watching him follow, things don't go as planned, and they get messy, as they tend to do. And in that final sequence, he is sitting at a restaurant with the girl that he's rescued. If I remember correctly, they are either waiting to meet someone or they stopped somewhere before going to drop her off. And there is this moment, I'm not going to ruin it, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. That I'm sitting on my couch in a house by myself, totally fine. Okay, cool. What the fuck? And it has never left my brain.
It's so good. It's another one that's based on a novel, or it's a novella by Jonathan Ames, and the novella is fantastic. Really swift read, but like just like the movie, weighty, and you have to you'll read it really fast, and then you'll sit in a chair wishing that the world would just actually blow up because we're terrible. Humanity is is it worth saving? I don't know. It's one of those books. It's so good. I don't know how she made this movie. I'm in awe of her.
Is this the joint where he's walking around with the hammer?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer and yes, I want to check this out, and it just got past me, and I never got back to it. But
if you want to see a phenomenal Phoenix performance that will fucking break you, watch it. It is because of this that in subsequent marathons I now plan alternating types of films, so that kind of break it up a instead of just going okay, here's these movies that I'm interested in, I'll be like, okay, I know this one's going to be a drama, so I'm going to lighten it with maybe a comedy, and then after that'll be a thriller, and then whatever else. Right now I've started putting together for what it'll be after Thanksgiving, if I get to do it. And I'm probably going to end the night with Bottoms because I haven't seen it yet, and it's short enough that Crystal might be able to watch it with me.
There you go.
But so far I'm alternating things where it's heavy drama and heavy this. I don't know if I'll get to Occupied City. That's a 4.5 hour documentary on the Holocaust, but
that's a movie that I sat and saw it in theaters, and that's a movie that will also make you think that contemporary society is not worth saving.
Yes, I've thought about this for a while now.
There's some really amazing juxtapositions between contemporary Amsterdam and what the world is like when he was filming it, which was during the early days of the pandemic, and what people were willing to do to try to help each other during the war, that will completely make you think maybe we all should have died. That's how I left watching that after that movie was over. I was I don't know that we deserve to even be here anymore. This is horrible. And the root of all evil actually is capitalism. That is what that documentary basically shows. But it doesn't hit you over the head. It just does it with visual juxtaposition, which is why McQueen is above everybody. He doesn't need to lecture. He just shows. It's so good. But yeah, I would absolutely pair that. I paired it with Green Border, which is also a bleak movie about how we only care about white refugees, and then use black and brown refugees as political pawns. And it's a very bleak Polish movie. I don't recommend doing that as a double feature, even though they speak to each other. I think you're pairing that with a light comedy is much wiser for
Probably
your
a
mental.
smart idea.
Yeah, like if I hadn't already seen Suzumi, which is absolutely phenomenal, and is one of my favorites of this year, or if I hadn't seen Nimona, which is one of my favorite animated films of this year as well, that would be on this list. Like if I were going
Yeah,
to watch something
like
like,
a light.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I were to watch You Were Never Really Here, I don't know how I would follow that one,
All right, right
but
on.
that would be the idea. So anyway, just I because particularly we ran a little longer, I just want to say, Mariah, thank you so much for your flexibility, for your patience,
Yeah.
and your
This was
willingness to
really
join
fun.
us for this. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
I really appreciated the invitation. This was so much fun.
Where can people currently find your work? I know at the beginning I listed a couple things. Where could people find your work or find you if they want to follow you?
Yeah, I think I am attempting, like many people, to leave Twitter/X, but I am still sometimes there. But I think I'm most active on Letterboxd and Instagram in terms of like movie, if you're just interested in movie related stuff. And obviously you mentioned my Substack, which is all of these are Old Films Flickr. So Old Films Flickr at Substack, at Twitter, at Instagram, on I don't know where else, Tumblr. I actually still am on Tumblr. For those of us who refuse to close our Tumblr tabs. And the Substack is a lot of films directed by women centered stuff, but I had attempted to do more like noir and silent film related stuff, but I am in the middle of finishing a manuscript for my book. So getting anything out
Takes precedence. Got to do that.
has been really difficult. And then I also publish my whatever criticism or the things that are paying my actual bills at the end of the month on the Substack as well. So
Right on, right on. It's another Substack for you to all subscribe to, and do it zestily.
Right, that's right. Well, thank you so very much. Next week, we if the strike is over, we will be joined by another set of guests, but that all depends on the strike because one of them is a SAG member. And I personally hope that the AMPTP gets the heads out of their asses finally and stops trying to be greedy bastards, like trying to get AI without copies, without having to go to estates and permissions. What ghoulish bullshit is this? It's how we get the Flash.
Did you ever see
Oh,
did you ever see Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow?
Angelina
Yep.
Jolie, baby.
I love that movie, but like, that's what they did with Laurence Olivier. And like, how'd they do that? I don't know. Because he's in it, right? And
That's
it's
right.
weird. And
Huh.
it's like anyone with any kind of prescience in the industry, which is how no one in the industry has any prescience, would have seen that and said, oh shit, we should make sure this doesn't happen again 20 years ago. And then they didn't. And they didn't. It's wild.
Yeah, all of us common sense people said this shouldn't happen again. But the people are like money, 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 money.
Yeah.
Who make the
Yeah.
decisions.
And of course it popped up in conversations. I can't think of the name of the movie with Robin Wright, where this was the entire plot of the
That's
movie.
the plot. It's
Blade Runner 2049.
No.
Oh, sorry.
the Congress. It's called the Congress.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of the movie. Thank you so
where
much.
she
for that.
sells her likeness. It's
And the rest of the movie is her likeness on this adventure. And it's like, we made this movie.
people knew this was coming. Yeah.
Anyway, that could be a whole other episode conversation. And depending on how the rest of the year goes, maybe we'll call you back because we are on the what, Daryl?
So 100, man. We have we got a couple more episodes left, man. We'll see if you can slide you in. Thank you so much for coming.
Seriously,
This is a delightful episode.
I had a lot of fun, so thank you.
Thank you. And that is it for this episode of the Cinema. We'll be back in about 2 weeks, man, to keep talking movies. So stay tuned and we'll talk to you later on.